Okay, this is 14.2 trend lines and predictions. That is standard, and to be able to use the trend line to make predictions from a scatter plot is your goal. Again, always with 80% accuracy or higher given the independent practice. So the trend line is basically a straight line that you create from the scatter plot that comes closer to majority of the points and is used to model the relationship between the variables. Okay. So how does the x relate to the y? Your trend line is going to tell you. Interpolating is basically using the trend line of what is given to you, the information that's given to you, the data set, to make predictions. And you can either use that you're given, finding the trend line with the trend line, or using the equation that you get from it. So we'll go over that. And then extrapolating is making predictions or inferences outside of the knowledge that you're given. So outside of the known or given value. So outside of this graph, basically. Okay, so again, that's something that is not included in the actual graph or the trend line. So the first thing is, how do we draw a trend line from a scatter plot? So the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna use the points that are here. And you're gonna try to eyeball where half of the points are. You can count them if you want to, but I think that's extra work because at the end of the day, when you have a lot of them, you're not gonna be able to do like half and half. Sometimes you're gonna actually go through the points. So it's also important to know that you should have about half of the dots, the points on top of above the trend line, and then half of them below. And then the other thing you have to remember is to ignore any outliers. So in this case, I have these two outliers. I'm gonna ignore this. I'm gonna ignore these 2 points completely, because if otherwise I don't, then I'm gonna end up with the trend line that is actually not a trend line. Okay. And then lastly, you're gonna use the trend line to find information that you're asked. So I suggest that you get it clear. It says to use a straight edge. So the best thing you can use something that is clear, because you can actually see where the other half of the points are. If you only use something that is, you're gonna cover them, so you won't be able to see where half of the points are. So like for instance, if you look over here, that's only half of the points. If I look right here, there's more over here. But if I'm going closer, you see, I'm getting closer to half of them. I think this is pretty close. I'm gonna ignore this two again. So I think that's pretty close. Maybe move it more this way, where I can end up with kind of like half of the points on one side and the other one's right there. So I think that's pretty good as a trend line. Okay, so it's gonna be my trend line. So how do we interpolate? So interpolating is using information that is on the actual graph. So for instance, if I say, okay, if I spend 30 minutes in the fair, about how much money would I spend? Okay, that's what it says. How much am I gonna pay? I'm gonna go in 31 minutes. I'm gonna go up. I'm gonna get to the line. Okay, not to the dot, but to the line, and I'm gonna go to the left, and I'm gonna see what that is. Okay, what the y value of that is. That is about 43. I'm gonna say, okay, I'm gonna spend $43. Okay. If I interpolate again, if I say, okay, if I only have about let's say $30, how much time can I spend? So I can go $30. This is my y. I can go here, and then I go down. I can spend about 22 minutes. Okay, so that's how you interpolate. Okay, how do we extrapolate? Extrapolating will be after the fact information that is outside of the trend line. So you can continue with the trend line and figure it out from there, but I think it's easier if we actually create our equation. Okay, so how do we find the equation? We're gonna use the slope intercept form y equals mx plus b, where m is your slope, b is your y-intercept. M is found by finding the rise over the run, which is also known as a change of y over the change of x, or the equation is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And then we'll find our y-intercept and then create our equation from there. So here we go. So I'm going to pick 2 points. In this case, it's easier when you have the graph line. I don't have it here, but I'm just going to pick 2 points. So this one's a good point to pick. When you have your graph, let me just show you really quick. You have your line right there. It's always good to pick the ones that actually go through the intersections. This is not a good point to pick. Remember, whenever you're trying to do that, pick the ones that are actually on the intersection of the graph lines, okay, of the graph paper. Okay, so in this case, I'm gonna just eyeball it because I don't have a graph. I don't have graph paper under here to show that, so I'm gonna use graph this one, and I'll graph, let's see, okay, I'll pick 30. So this is 30, and then if I go to the left, I end up like right here, which is about like $43. Okay, so then I can say, how much did I go up from 0 to 43? I went up 43. And how much did I go over? I went 30. Okay, And then so from here I can just leave it like that. There's nothing I can simplify, and I can just write x. And where's my line hidden? The y-axis is on 0, so I don't really have to write this. So I can just keep it like this. Okay, so that will be my equation, which seems a little weird. On your book you actually get to do ones that, and then you end up with like 90 over 10, which is to 9, right? So you end up with y equals 9x or something like that. So they're actually more a little more realistic than mine. So then what you do is, okay, if you're gonna extrapolate, so you're gonna say, okay, if you spend 60 minutes, and that 60 minutes is actually not a graph, how much money would I have to pay? So then what you have to do is, because my x, you know, is my minutes, so I know that my 60 has to do with minutes, right? It's gonna be my x. So I'm gonna say 43 over 30 times my x, which is 60. And then I go from here and we'll put a 1 under it, and then I can, because I'm multiplying here, I can cross cancel here. 30 goes into 31, so into 60 twice, and then I go 43 times 2. That will be 86 over 1, which is just 86 bucks. Okay, so that's how you extrapolate. If you want to, you can continue on the line and you go 50, 60, and then go from there, and that will tell you about how much money you will spend. Okay, let me go ahead and give you one to do really quick, and then we'll call it a day. Okay, so you're given this data set where the trend line is actually drawn for you already. It's the number of hours worked. We, like survey, I don't know, like 20 something people, and then in the same family, and then that's how many hours they work, how much money they received. So go ahead and find the equation for that trend line, and then interpolate how much money would, following the trend, would it gain if they work 3 hours. Okay? And then extrapolate if the hours that they work is 8 hours. Make sure that you use your equation to figure those out, at least this one, and then this one you can either use the graph or use your equation. Okay, God bless you, bye.